So let's talk about a writer's worst enemy, ourselves. Inside each and every one of us is the inner critic, the one who keeps us from making a fool of ourselves. For many of us, it's a constant companion we wish would leave us alone every once in a while. For others, it's just the quiet little voice in the back that we probably should listen to a little bit more. The inner critic is a necessary part of our development, but we have to make sure we don't let it stunt our growth. While I'm glad I listened to my inner critic and didn't publish the very first book that I wrote, I have fallen victim to its never ending harsh criticisms. My inner critic would tell me, well, that person's work's better. Their writing's more vivid, their art is more creative, and who are you to jump into the traffic of far better creators? When our inner critic voice becomes like this, it becomes unproductive. I personally have a graveyard full of manuscripts and art, and I know I'm not alone. There are many creatives out there stuck in the cycle of perfectionism and freezing. And while it's admirable that you want your work to be its very best, and I'd argue that this is better than rushing the process, you don't want to stay here forever. When the inner critic runs around unchecked, we let it tell us that our work is never good enough. Its hideousness must be hidden away. After all, it doesn't want us to make a fool of ourselves. If you're like me, you want to wait till you're an expert to share your work. But what exactly makes you an expert? Is it the qualifications? Is it a traditional book deal? Or is it a horde of admiring fans? I'm going to let you in on this little secret that helped me get unstuck and unparalyzed in my creative journey. There is no such thing as an expert. Before we get into that, let's not be completely mean to our inner critic, because after all, it is looking out for our best interests. There are a few upsides to it. I would never say that the inner critic should be completely done away with. We should not just toss it out, never to hear from it again. Our contentious friend really does have our best interest in mind, and it prompts us to strive for excellence. And it always wants our next attempt to be better than the last. And that's good. It spurs us to learn and to practice our craft. It tells us to push the contrast in our art to make it pop. It tells the words on the page just aren't flowing right. If we want to become better at what we do, we have to listen to it once in a while. At least if we want people to take us seriously. However, you just can't let it run rampant. So my personal journey on becoming an expert. Once upon a time, I believed that experts knew exactly what they were doing. They never had a moment of doubt, and their futures were secured in their chosen field. But for better or worse, none of that's true. I've been writing and making art since elementary school. No joke, I had dreams in elementary school about seeing my published book one day in the school library. As I grew up and learned more, I realized there was a lot I didn't know and a lot I still needed to learn before that could be a reality. So originally, I thought once I had my bachelor's in writing, I would be good. I'd be able to call myself an expert. As I was concluding my degree, I had this horrifying realization that none of us really knew what we were doing. So then I thought surely my MFA would do the trick. Grad school was far more prestigious than undergrad, right? As it turns out, that didn't make me feel better either. It did give me a better understanding of the book industry itself, which I wish undergrad would have touched on, but that's a different subject. But it didn't make me feel like an expert. So then, certainly getting a traditional publishing deal, that would be it. That's when I would feel like the expert. As it turns out, in my journey to try to get a publishing deal, I realized I didn't want to go traditional publishing. There's many reasons, but probably the number one is that I've learned that as a new debut author, I'd have to do most of my own marketing. And if I had to do that anyway, which is the part that I wanted to go trad for, I may as well go indie and keep all my profits. But if I went indie publishing, how would I know that I was an expert? How would I know that my books were ready? I don't want to publish something that's half cooked and not ready for a shelf. It wasn't until I got into some professional business spaces outside of the writing community that it really clicked for me. No one's an expert. So here I was listening to all these movers and shakers in my community, people with successful businesses and way outside my tax bracket. And I mean, way outside my tax bracket. And they constantly expressed how they were always learning and getting advice from other people. They didn't know everything about their industry. And especially when they wanted to expand, they'd have to find resources through books, through their connections, videos, what have you. But in other words, they were always learning. They didn't know everything about running their business. When I realized this, it's like the clouds parted. I had a mindset switch. I didn't have to be an expert in what I had originally believed was the definition in my own mind, and neither do you. Yes, you still want to be professional and realistic about where you are in the process of learning your craft. I will never encourage anyone to rush the process. If you're just getting into writing, there's still a lot of things that you need to learn before publishing. You should write a few duds that don't ever see the light of day before the one. That's part of the learning process. But don't let yourself get stuck here. Seek out advice from experienced experts. And this will look different for every stage of writing. When seeking advice, see what suggestions someone is giving and compare it to other experts in that field. If they match up, odds are that's really good advice. Granted, once in a while you might get a revolutionary piece of advice that the others don't match up with, but typically experts will tend to say the same thing. And always remember that different stages of the publishing process requires different skill sets. So you're going to want to find experts in each of those particular pieces. So if you're writing fiction, it looks a lot different from writing blogs, which looks different from editing, which looks different from internal formatting, which looks very different from book covers. And then all of those are very different from marketing. So look for experts in each of those skills. For example, did I know everything about making videos before launching a YouTube channel? Absolutely not. Making videos and being online was actually something I didn't originally want to do. It took a mindset switch to get here, and it took a lot of research and seeking advice until I felt confident enough to launch. I made a plan, and I'm 80% happy, at least 80% happy, with the videos and the process that I have. And I have a commitment to continuing refining the process and making better videos. Why 80%? I want to be 100% happy, you might say. Well, this kind of goes back to perfectionism and that keeping you stuck where you are. If you're like me and you're a perfectionist, this is the hardest bit of advice to really integrate into your life because you want to be 100% happy. But you don't want to wait because after this 80% mark of happiness, you lose return on the investment of time and energy. It might take 2 hours of work to get to that 80%, but then when you try to get to the 100%, that 2 hours of work will only get you to 85%. You're going to lose a lot of time trying to get to 100%, a goal that you're actually never going to hit. So 80% is good enough. And after that, you should still be in the process of learning and doing better. So your next 80% is going to look better than your first 80%. So what does it mean for us as a people if no one knows exactly what they're doing? Are we doomed for failure? No, it means nothing new. The world has always been this way. It's just been kind of kept a secret from those who aren't experts in their field. The world keeps spinning. So educate yourself, surround yourself with people who are considered experts, and just do the thing. Write the book, make the art, or whatever it is you do, and share it with the world. You'll never really feel ready, and that's okay. No one else does either.